1,000 subscribers. 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. First of all, I am very grateful and very happy to be at this milestone. And yeah, I've had a lot of joy and fun creating content over the past years. But I also thought this would be a nice moment to share a little bit about my journey, but also to help people maybe set some realistic expectations about what it really means to try to be a content creator and what's like a realistic path. Because I think so much of the things we see out there nowadays just make it seem that instant success is within reach. And yeah, I don't think that is always the case. And I also don't think that that is necessarily the thing that we should want, because I think there's also many lessons to be drawn in the journey itself. So to just sort of take you back to where this all started. About 8 years ago, I was 21. I was very much into um, taking myself out of my comfort zone. I was doing a lot of social challenges. I was trying to challenge myself in all these different ways. And I remember back in that time, I was also really getting into podcasts. And back then, it was this up and coming medium. And there was this one podcast episode in particular that really tickled me in an interesting way. And that was an interview that Tim Ferriss did with Carl Fussman, this masterful interviewer. And in this conversation, Carl was basically sharing how he took a full decade in his early 20s to travel the world. And he didn't have any money. He didn't have anything in his pocket. He just sort of went. And yeah, he was sharing these amazing stories, how he would meet people in the train and then ended up sleeping at their place, and then meeting family members at their place and sleeping at their place, and just sort of like that, travel the entire world. And at that time, I just started my bachelor's degree, my first bachelor's degree, social work. And I remember not really feeling that that was the fit for me. So I was there and I heard this interview, and this little seed got planted. I was like, okay, maybe this is something that I want to do. Maybe I should also just pack my bags and I just travel the world. And that seed was planted. And in the weeks that followed, I was just, like most 20-year-olds do, I was just like watching videos on YouTube and being engaged in the online world. And I stumbled upon this YouTube channel of a bunch of young people that made travel vlogs. And their travel vlogs just seemed like the dream lifestyle. They were taking trips in nature, they were partying, and just the entire thing seemed very appealing for me at the time. And that was sort of the seed that got planted, was the interview, and then that video sort of pushed me over the edge. And I got tremendously lucky because I think 2 years prior to that, my brother convinced me to put 50 euros into the ICO of Ethereum, and that just randomly happened to have turned into 3,000 euros. So I just found myself in this very interesting spot where I was like, I was 21 years old. I was wanting to drop out of my bachelor degree. I wanted to travel the world. And I just randomly found myself with the bag of 3,000 euros, which at the time seemed like, most money I ever had. And I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to finish this year. Then I'm going to quit my study program and I'm going to go travel. I shared this with one of my good friends, and actually, I still, for reasons that are beyond me, he was like, you know what? I'll join you. And I was like, okay, I'm like happy to take you on, but there's one condition. Like, I really want to combine this travel with doing all of these social challenges and really continually keep pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And then actually I want to videotape all that stuff, turn that into YouTube content, and then the ideal dream would be to then earn money with that content to sustain the travel from, right? So that was like the pinnacle. That was the dream that we were striving for. Create content, earn money with that content, and then just keep traveling. And, he was like, sure, let's just do it. We're already taking this huge risk, so let's just go travel the world. And there was this one moment that I remember very clearly, and this is also an important moment to remember for the rest of the story. So we were sitting on this grass field in our hometown, and I just said to my friend, I was like, we are just going to send this. We are going to create the best content the world has ever seen. And at the end of this year, we will have 100,000 subscribers, right? Because I had already seen a lot of these inspirational videos and a lot of these inspirational interviews, and you have to set the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? The BHAG, like set high goals, like dream big, all those things. And I was like, we're just gonna have 100,000 subscribers at the end of the year. This was 8 years ago. And we actually went. We went to travel the world. For the first 3 months, we were just full-time traveling. And afterwards, we stayed in Australia for 8 months to work as au pairs. And in these first 3 months, we created, I think, like 8 or 9 video logs. So we did all this fun stuff, and it was actually, one of the times in my life where I learned the most by far. 3 months where you can just do whatever the fuck you want. We just travel around, you explore the world, you meet people, you meet all these different cultures, and all the while we're creating videos of this entire process. But somewhere along the journey, my friend told me that he would rather not continue creating content. It wasn't really his thing. I was like, sure, but then if it's okay with you, I'll just keep doing this YouTube channel and I'll just keep making videos. I was fine with him, and we traveled a little longer. So fast forward, we arrive in Australia. And the whole shtick of the YouTube channel up to this point was we are traveling the world, we are creating videos of these travels, and that might inspire other people. And, also like glamorous lifestyle. I mean, it wasn't super glamorous, but you're trying to like pretend it's a glamorous lifestyle, and you're sort of trying to create FOMO for other people. And that was the whole shtick of the YouTube channel up to that point. But then once I arrived in Australia, I was just living in this house where I was an au pair, and I basically stayed in the same place for 8 months. And I very quickly realized that making videos of just being in the same place wasn't really interesting, right? It wasn't really interesting content. So that's the first time I thought to myself, I need to pivot the type of content that I made. And the idea that came to me at the time was like, I'm going to try to make this series where I learn a new skill every single week. At the time, I was very much interested in skill acquisition, learning new things. And yeah, as this story unfolds, you'll probably hear a lot of buzzwords and all of these things that you might actually encounter even in the modern internet. And that's also part of why I think this story is so powerful to share, because many of the things we are taught to believe, or many of the things we are taught to be very within reach, and like this is the single key to success that you're missing, are actually not as straightforward and easy as they sound. Because I tried many of these things, and I committed myself to many of these things, and yeah, it didn't always turn out as I expected it to turn out. So basically, I got this idea, I'm gonna learn a new skill every single week, and I'm sort of going to document me learning that skill, and then I'm going to make a product at the end of it, and that's sort of going to be like the cherry on top of the cake. And yeah, this era of my content, I had a lot of fun making it. It is also by far some of the most cringe-worthy shit I've ever uploaded on the internet.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Fran, and this is a new 1 week of video. In this video, we are gonna try to go viral. Alright, here's the progress I made on day 1. I spent a little over an hour practicing, and this is the results I have so far. And the VR merges with the AI. A gorgeous revelation, a new step in life. A world turned sci-fi where every truth becomes a lie, and the creation that we built becomes the reason that we die.
I kept most of it online just because I believe in, you put it out there, it's part of this digital history that you create. But there's some stuff there I'm like, just very, very, very stupid stuff. But anyway, I tried learning guitar, I tried going viral by making memes for 9gag, I did a makeover of my room, like all this silly stuff. And yeah, those videos didn't do particularly well. I think like the best performing video got like a few hundred views at most. But anyway, I was having fun, sure, we keep going. Fast forward a little more. I got back from Australia, and I had sort of really I drank the Kool-Aid on the personal development stuff, right? I listened to a shit ton of podcasts. I started reading all of these books, right? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and The Obstacle is the Way, and The Magic of Dreaming Big. I did my first Vipassana retreat. I experimented with a whole bunch of psychedelics, and I was really like, I was doing like early morning workouts. I was listening to Jocko Willink, all of this like just prime self-development stuff. And I was really deep down into the rabbit hole. So when I got back to the Netherlands, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this YouTube thing full-time for the unforeseeable future. It turned out to be 6 months, but I'm going to do this YouTube thing full-time. But instead of just doing entertainment, I want to do what they call infotainment, right? I want to entertain people, but I also want to give valuable information. The first thing I started doing was a series of book reviews. So all of these books that I had been reading, I actually made book reviews of those using software called VideoScriber, sort of like a whiteboard software where this hand is writing, and I would spend about a week on each video. Write a script, and then afterwards I would record it, and then I would make the whiteboard animation. I did a book series, I did a whole series on the blockchain, and then I actually did a series on drugs, and I titled this What School Didn't Teach. At the time, I was really interested in drugs, all of the different drugs that are out there, the different effects that they have, the risks that they have, and mostly just putting it in a different light, because I felt that our society has a very unfair judgment of many drugs. Like we have, for example, alcohol and tobacco, which are very socially acceptable, although tobacco less nowadays. And then we have other drugs which are actually way safer, like mushrooms or even LSD, that at the time were still very much demonized. So I just wanted to shed some more light and give a, at the time, I thought it was an unbiased perspective on these drugs. And there were actually a few videos that took off. And the interesting thing is when like a video takes off, it doesn't always happen instantly, right? We're so used to seeing like the thing that goes viral. But my most viral video at the time, which was on MDMA, had about 10,000 views. And I think it took about a year to get to that 10,000 view, like a year or 2 years to get to the 10,000 view mark. So that was my most viewed video at the time, basically explaining to people what MDMA is and how to use it safely and all the stuff around that. I also started doing a collaboration at this point with this other YouTuber, and yeah, I was doing like this course on how to create YouTube videos, and I was really trying to crack the formula, like how do you go viral, how do you get the views? Because all this time, right, even doing this, I love creating content, I love sharing my story, I love hearing from people, I just love this whole ecosystem, the whole YouTube ecosystem. But of course, at the end of the day, I still want to get views, right? That's like what so much of this content creation thing is about. We want views, we want to have subscribers, we want to potentially turn it into a business. And yeah, at the time, I was like trying to crack this formula. Anyway, didn't work out, right? I did relatively well, but I think I peaked at around 300 subscribers. So this is me 2.5 to 3 years into this YouTube content creation journey, and I now have 300 subscribers. But anyway, I had a lot of fun, I learned a lot, and that's when I decided to actually go back to university and do a bachelor in multimedia design. And I decided that during that bachelor degree, I was actually going to take a step back from the YouTube content creation, and I pivoted into the podcast content creation. And nowadays, like everybody and their mom has a podcast. I think I got in at a time where there was like, it was already picking up more steam, but it was still relatively novel. And I think that was a very good place to be in because it gave me an opportunity to just basically have a conversation with anyone interesting I would meet, and I could just pick their brain for like 1 to 2 hours. And because it was a relatively novel medium, actually many people were interested, right? So I was interviewing my teachers, I was interviewing entrepreneurs, I was interviewing team leads, I was interviewing all these different people that normally maybe I wouldn't have had that conversation with. I would just sit down with them and just pick their brains for like 1 to 2 hours. Once again thinking, like, I'm gonna be the new Joe Rogan, right? I'm gonna be this guy that's just gonna have the biggest podcast in the Netherlands, and just all these doors are going to open up for me. So this has always in the background sort of been the idea or the dream that I was striving for. So fast forward, actually, I think to my credit is that whenever I do these things, I always give them a proper go. I once heard on an interview or a podcast that sort of the litmus test is whether you can produce 6 episodes of a thing. It's like 95% of people fail before they produce the first 6 episodes of anything. No clue if the statistic is true, but that was sort of the heuristic that I was using, right? And I figured to myself, okay, I'm always gonna give everything a proper attempt. So I did the same with the podcast. I think I recorded 40 episodes for my own podcast, and it was actually doing relatively well. I was getting between 20 and 100 listeners per episode. But then I actually decided to try my hand at entrepreneurship, and I started this nonprofit foundation, and I just basically took a break from the content creation front. Fast forward a little further. I'm in the last year of my bachelor degree, and the nonprofit foundation that I ran for 2 years had collapsed, and I basically needed to find a new project, right? I always want to have a project or something to work on. And at the time, I was also just starting my graduation. And we had this thing in our study program that you could graduate in your own company. And all this time, I thought that the company that I would graduate in would be this nonprofit, but it literally collapsed the year before I started my graduation. So I was like, okay, I got to find something new. And just out of sort of the place I was in and like the thing that I needed to do, I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a Notion system and I'm going to sell that as a template. And that has been the content that I've been creating over the past 2.5 to 3 years. But it just sort of was born out of necessity. I was like, you know what? I'm going to create this epic, ultimate self-development Notion system, right? Because self-development has always been the thread through all of this content, like living a more meaningful life, a happier life, a healthier life, a wealthier life. And I was like, okay, I'm going to create this ultimate Notion system that helps people to live better lives. And that's what I started doing. And then as I was doing that, part of the strategy that I envisioned was I'm going to make content of all these separate parts of this Notion system that is then actually going to generate traffic. And then the traffic that I generate by doing that, those are actually the people that I can then sell the template to, right? So here the YouTube channel got like a slightly more of a marketing channel, became more of a marketing channel, became more part of a sort of business aspiration. But I was still also enjoying making this content. And you know, the first Notions videos, it's also scrappy. I'm like trying it out. And I think this is like a thread with all of this content, right? So much of it is just me trying it out and looking back. Like some of them I really enjoy. I'm very proud of the work that I made. And some of them I'm just thinking to myself, like, what the fuck were you thinking, bro? But we did it, you know? We did it anyway. Like I tried doing it. So that's what I did for this Notion content. And over time, I think it actually started to improve. And I have always had this struggle. And this is also sort of tying a little more into the end of the story and the lessons that I've drawn from this. I've always had this struggle between trying to hop on a hype or trying to hop on a trend and creating content that I think is truly valuable. Because I think so much of the social media landscape, so much of the digital landscape is actually not nourishing to people, but it's actually very toxic. And it's a difficult balance to make, right? I think shorts are the best example of this. YouTube Shorts, TikToks, Reels, all that sort of stuff. It feels like we're accomplishing something when we watch it, right? You see this inspiring short, like for a moment you get that dopamine hit and you almost feel like you just did that thing. But in reality, you're learning jack shit, right? You scrolling shorts for an hour is not nearly as nourishing as reading a book for an hour. So there is this balance that I want to strike. I want to tune into the medium to the point where I realize that this is what you need to do in the modern landscape to build an audience, whilst also building a high quality and loyal audience and people that actually want to take the deeper dive. Because I don't believe in the quick fix. I don't believe in the 15-minute trick or the 6-week hack, right? Things that are worthwhile having take time to get, take time to create. And every now and then there's going to be this person that just stands out, right? And they just completely burst out of nowhere. But I think a very important thing to realize that very often those people have years, if not decades of experience leading up to that point, right? A great example I saw the other day, this YouTube channel, and it had just one video. And this one video was like how to become successful on YouTube with a single video. And it was beautifully edited and the content was super duper great. And indeed, this video got 200K views or something like within a few weeks. And I was like, that is great. But there's also some deception in the message of that video because new people will not be able to do that. And actually, upon some closer inspection, this guy indeed had, I don't remember exactly, like 5 or 10 years of professional editing experience. I'm like, that makes sense, right? You are a professional at your craft that now starts this new channel. But if new people do this, if somebody decides to make content and they've never done this before, or they decide to get good at anything, really, it takes time, right? Things just take time in this world. And I think that is something that people really want to sell you the belief that it doesn't take time, because we all want the quick fix, right? We want the instant hit. And now we want that more than ever with the modern landscape. And people hijack that, right? We want the quick fix, so other people are happy to sell us the quick fix, even if that is not real. And I think social media right now is littered with all of this content and also giving us a false belief. And I think the problem there is that when we have this false belief, it starts feeling like we are failing, right? Me going on this 8-year trajectory, creating all this content, right? Just to sort of wrap up this story. Like last December, I sort of put the cherry on top for my Notion system, and I uploaded this 12-hour-long masterclass, right? I've been working 3 years on this system. Part of it was on the side, but part of it was also full-time. Created this 12-hour masterclass, and it's something I really believe in, right? I think that it's a system that I use all the time, and I really believe if people would use this over the long term, they will become exponentially better. But that is not the thing that our current landscape is wired for, right? And if you would look at my trajectory, it took me 8 years and over 100 videos to go from 0 to 1,000 subscribers, right? 1,000 subscribers. It sounds negligible. It sounds in today's modern social media landscape, it sounds like nothing, right? If I would make a video that says how you could get 1,000 subscribers, people wouldn't even click on it, right? People want to know how they can get 1 million subscribers. People want to know how they get financial independence. We all want like this ultimate result. And yeah, that is, I think, the main lesson that I learned from this journey, and also what I just want to share with everyone who has been watching my content or who is watching this right now, is that things take time. And it's important to try, it's important to keep going, but it's also important to enjoy the journey. And I know that sounds so cliche, but if you cannot find joy in the process, and if you cannot rebound after what feels like a fail, because it is not a fail, right? The fact that 1,000 people are watching you, that is bonkers, right? I did a whole bunch of public speaking. I did a whole bunch of guest lectures. I've been in halls where I was speaking to 100 people. If you are speaking to 100 people, your heart rate just rises. You start sweating. You get anxious, and you're like, God damn it, like I am delivering a speech here or a talk, like a 2-hour talk to 100 people. That is bonkers. Like if you get to that place in life, you're already doing good, right? You can like get the attention of 100 other humans to just listen to what you have to say, what you have to share with them. If we put content in that perspective, right? If I have 2,000 hours of watch time on a masterclass, that is great. 2,000 hours of watch time. That is 100 people or 1,000 people. Let's say 1,000 people watching for 2 hours. That's as if you had 1,000 people in an auditorium and you're talking to them for 2 hours, right? So I think these numbers just don't always reflect what they really mean to us, because we're just so dazzled with all these big numbers. But I actually think it's great. It's something to be grateful for, and it helps us reframe those things that we might think of as failures as actually great successes and great opportunities to learn. And yeah, that is also my plan moving forward. I'm just going to keep creating content. I think this sort of content is something I want to give a try. I know that people like to see just more of the authentic stuff nowadays. There I also have a whole bunch of caveats and things that I would love to talk about in the future. I want to try more of the professional-oriented content, more of the tutorial-oriented content. There's so many ideas, so many plans that I have. I have absolutely no clue where this thing is going to take me, but I just know that I am very, very grateful for all of the people that have ever tuned into this channel, all the people that are continuously tuning into this channel. And yeah, I would just encourage all of you, if you're watching this, I would just encourage you, if there is some creative endeavor that you want to pick up, if there is some business endeavor that you want to pick up, just go and give it a fucking try. What do you have to lose? Just shoot a whole bunch of times. You will miss many, many times, but just continue shooting and enjoy that process, because that's ultimately all that we can do, right? We can just create something, put it out into the world, and who knows, maybe 2 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, you will go viral, you will get your breakthrough, you will get that thing that people are constantly selling you, but maybe you won't, you know? Maybe you're like me, maybe you're 8 years into the process and you realize, 8 years, I sat on that field of grass and I told my friend, before the end of the year, we will have 100,000 subscribers. And now, 8 years later, I can happily say that I finally got the first 1,000 of those subscribers. And you know what? Still one hell of a journey. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'm wishing you all the best with all of your beautiful adventures. See you later.